is always to wrestle with these complex ideas, pull out the most fascinating insights, and give you a really solid, multifaceted perspective. And we try to do that without drowning you in jargon. So get ready. We're about to dive deep into some concepts that are truly mind-bending. They challenge not just physics, but maybe even how we define reality itself. Today's focus is the unified coherence theory of everything. Let's call it UCTE for short. And specifically, we're digging into how two really groundbreaking interconnected papers by Philip Randolph Lillian fit together. The first is the coherence emergence event, and the second, which builds on it, is the Codex of Emergent Universes, multicellular big emergence. We're going to explore how these aren't just separate works, but how they weave together to paint this, well, unified, dynamic, and frankly revolutionary picture of cosmogenesis, the universe's birth, its structure, and how it keeps evolving. And what's really exciting, I think, about this deep dive is seeing how that second paper just dramatically expands on the first one. It takes us from this idea of a cellular universe, our universe, as one cell among maybe millions.
To something much more organic, more like a multicellular organism
Yeah.
for the whole multiverse. It even introduces things like cosmic Coulomb barriers, think dynamic membranes and entanglement bridges connecting these cosmic cells.
Yeah, it's a profound shift. It's not just tweaking physics, it's proposing a fundamentally different kind of reality.
Exactly. So
I-
let's really unpack this. We're talking about a universe, or maybe multiverse, that isn't just one big bang, but potentially millions, maybe billions of these dynamic, interconnected creation events happening constantly, interacting. And this is where it gets really interesting.
It absolutely does. And that integration you mentioned between the two papers, it's key because you get this comprehensive view that's, well, revolutionary in its scope, but also quite elegant conceptually. The coherence emergence event, the CEE paper, gives us the basics, the foundations of how maybe an individual space-time domain crystallizes.
Right, the building block. Exactly. But then multicellular big emergence, MBE, takes those individual cellular universes and really elevates the whole concept. It turns it into this almost biologically inspired model of a living, evolving multiverse.
Like moving from studying one cell under a microscope to understanding the whole complex organism.
Precisely that. It's that leap in scale and complexity.
Okay, so let's start by, well, shaking the foundations a bit. For 100 years, the Big Bang has been the origin story. It explains cosmic expansion, the microwave background, so much. But Lillian's first paper, CEE, kicks off by challenging the single story. It points to growing inconsistencies. So what are these cracks that are appearing in the standard Big Bang model? Are they just little blips or are they fundamental problems?
That's a really critical question. Look, the standard model, the Big Bang plus inflation, has been incredibly successful. Let's be clear about that. It's still our best working explanation for many things. But it does face some growing challenges, especially as observational data gets better and better. The CEE paper specifically highlights anomalies that are, let's say, difficult to fully square with a single perfectly uniform origin event, even with inflation smoothing things out initially. Take the cosmic microwave background, the CMB. We see these localized fluctuations, these patterns.
The cold spots and things like that.
Exactly, the cold spots, but also other larger scale alignments or asymmetries that seem, well, statistically unlikely if everything started perfectly smoothly and uniformly inflated. They don't quite fit the picture.
Right, so they're not just random noise. They're structures, patterns in the afterglow that shouldn't really be there according to the simplest version of the story. How significant are these?
They're significant enough to make cosmologists uncomfortable, let's put it that way.
Sure.
We're talking about deviations that really push the standard model, requiring maybe some fine-tuning or extra assumptions. And beyond the CMB, think about the large-scale structure of the universe we see today. You know, the cosmic web, these huge filaments of galaxies, and the vast empty voids between them. They seem almost too organized, too big, too interconnected, to have just sprung from one initial undifferentiated explosion, even with gravity acting over billions of years. The standard model struggles to explain the sheer scale and the intricate networking without maybe invoking some extra ingredients or processes.
I see. So the universe looks almost too structured for such a simple beginning. And then, of course, there's the big mystery. Everyone talks about dark matter.
Precisely. Dark matter is essential, gravitationally speaking, for holding these large structures together. We know it's there, but its distribution, how it clumps, how it interacts, its fundamental nature, it's still a huge puzzle. And how it fits into this vast cosmic architecture, stabilized across billions of light years, isn't fully explained or integrated into the standard Big Bang picture either. These aren't just minor quibbles. They're fundamental questions suggesting maybe we need a different starting point, a new paradigm.
Okay. So what if that story we've held onto for a century needs, yeah, a radical upgrade? What if the beginning wasn't one big flash, but something more distributed, more dynamic, maybe even ongoing? This leads us right into the core idea of the coherence emergence event, the CE itself. This sounds like a complete redefinition of cosmogenesis.
It absolutely is. UCTE, as laid out in that first paper, it flips the script. It proposes that space-time itself, the fabric of reality, doesn't emerge from some initial singularity, that infinitely dense point in the Big Bang model.
You're right. No single point source.
No. Instead, it suggests space-time is the result of a structured crystallization. Crystallization of coherence from what Lillian calls a hyperdimensional invariant substrate.
Okay, crystallization of coherence. Let's break that down.
Think of it less like an explosion and more like, say, ice crystals forming in water. Order emerging from a background potential. And
Sure.
critically, our universe isn't the product of one such event, but potentially millions of localized coherence emergence events, or CEEs. These happen across a much larger pre-existing cosmic medium.
Millions. Wow. Okay, so not one giant firework display, but maybe countless tiny, perfectly timed sparklers, maybe,
Yeah.
all contributing to the whole picture.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. Each CEE creates its own distinct cellular universe. A little bubble is space-time. And these bubbles exist within a larger nested sort of hyperfractal lattice. Imagine a foam, maybe, but structured fractally. And these events aren't random. They're driven by something called resonance point dynamics.
Resonance points.
Yeah, these arise from the coherence vacuum. We'll get into that. And they organize along coherence gradients, like flows of potential. This organization is what forms the structured regions of matter, energy, and the dimensions we experience. It's a continuous creation process, in a way.
So, okay, let me try an analogy. Instead of one huge, isolated explosion creating everything instantly, imagine millions of localized crystallization events, like freezing points appearing in supercooled water, but perfectly timed and structured. And these events together form the very fabric of our reality, almost like individual cells growing and dividing to structure a complex organism.
That's a very good analogy. And it's one that becomes even more central when we bring in the second paper, the MBE.
Right, the multicellular organism idea. But let's stick with the foundations from CE for a moment. We need to nail down these pillars. First up, hypergravity invariance. That sounds incredibly fundamental, almost like a meta law of physics.
It is presented as exactly that, foundational. It's defined as a pre-space-time constant. Mathematically, H equals constant for all potential fields within the overarching set. What that really means is it's this irreducible, unchanging principle that organizes how structure emerges across all scales.
So it exists before space-time.
Yes, that's key. It precedes space-time. It acts like this still point, the anchor around which all fluctuations, all emergence happens. It ensures the underlying coherence potential, the capacity for order, remains constant, even when local symmetries break during crystallization.